Good morning, everybody. Let me turn that Feeding the Ducks music off. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining myself and 8 other people that are watching out there in the interweb lands. Good morning, Dan. Good morning to my mom. She's probably watching. JP down in Southern California. Good morning. So, if you'll apologize, my eyes are bugging the heck out of me this morning. They're all puffy. People say, oh, well, that's because you just woke up. Well, partly true. But this has been happening more frequently to me. We've got a good show lined up, I think, for today. I don't have 2 monitors set up right now, so I have to pop in and out of the chat. But we got Rocky there looking at 2 locomotives, GP30 and an SD40-2. That's a Burlington Northern 1876 model. Um, yeah, so what I called the show "Shut It Down." Well, it's about correctly, or how do you protect yourself from shorts, circuits on your layout and keep things running when you have a larger layout. Let me switch back over to main view. Yeah, so that's what this one is going to be about. Need to change the camera on this other scene here. Yeah, so let's just go back to the chat. See, we got people talking. Who do we have here? We have Dats Closet Branch was the first one that I see in the chat here in StreamYard. Might have been somebody who made it in earlier. If I go, but I didn't go to the YouTube page. Pete Motley, Kevin Brown, and Brother Dan. At least that's all the people that are chatting. And JP down in SoCal. So, what do we have in store today? Well, I have 3 different circuit protectors. And actually, one's a circuit protector. The other one is a PM42, which is Digitrax version called a power manager. And that's because it does up to 4 different blocks, or they call subdivisions. I also have the PM74. I won't be demoing that today. There's just too much going on. And in fact, I'm not going to go deep into the instructions or the capabilities either. We're just going to touch a little lightly on what you can do with these things and the reasons why you want to have one on your layout. So let's go through another thing. It's 1st of March. People say, well, where's the layout photos? Well, it's 1st of March. It takes time to produce those. Layout photos will be next week at this time for the February 2025 Roy Smith, N-Scale, Union Pacific, Evanston Subdivision, Facebook group photos of the month. Wow, that's a lot to say. But today, and then there will be the live show that follows that about 10 of the hour, usually. Depending on how many photos, I haven't really paid attention to how many total photos have been posted in the last month. Short month, 28 days. This next month, 31. January is 31. But yeah, that's what we've got going on next week. And that's what we've got going on today. So don't be distracted by the other big object in the back. God, this huge bear is sitting in this room now because he lost his bedroom. We have a guest staying with us, and so he got kicked out. That's Da Shong, Big Bear. Okay. And of course, Rocky's always here in this room. So I think we're going to switch over, and I'm going to won't be able to see. Let's see, I'll just switch this over. Won't lose it. Okay, we're switched to the camera. You can see me in the lower right corner, And you can see a circuit breaker. This one is by DCC Specialties. They're the same guys that make these RR ramp meters. So let's see what's going on. Hi to the king of the freeway, 60 JP. That adds the 10, 215, 91, 138, 40. I have a tractor trailer and get the large for serves. Okay. All right. So this DCC Specialties PSX1. So these things come gang together in 1, 2, 3, or 4. I just have one, and they just make all the circuit breakers, and they don't break the circuit boards, and they don't break them apart when you have more than one gang together. But this is the older version. There's actually a newer version, I think PSXX, and it actually does a little bit better job of detecting or quickly detecting a short. But we're going to go through this one. This one does a good job. After reading through the instructions, there are instructions even in the quick start that tell you that in order to use this circuit breaker with Digitrax, there's a jumper in this location up here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a jumper wire that has to be soldered in place, which I did here. That was the only modification that I made. Yeah, so it's hard to keep up with these things. And the other thing is when you go to your terrain store, often you'll find that they've had these things sitting on their shelves for years. So sometimes you get much older equipment. So I bought this years ago. This was the first circuit breaker that I bought before I bought a PM74. And you know what? I hooked it up wrong when I had it hooked up. I did not have this jumper installed. So that's probably the reason why I decided that I couldn't use it. I went to use the PM74 because I didn't have it set up correctly. What's the right thing to do? And read the instructions clearly for these electronics. Okay. So what are we going to do? We're going to start with saying how this is hooked up. So up here on the top here, the inputs from the booster come in. I don't have the booster powered up right now. I'm going to take the RR map, and I don't really recommend that you do this bare wire kind of thing, but we don't have a lot of time to do this the right way. But we'll just hook those up with jumper wires, just so we can see that that's going on there. And the other thing, if I step away from the camera here, I want to set up one other thing before we turn the power on. We want to have an indication that there's still power coming from the booster when a short happens. So what we expect to see here is that one RR map, PM74 out of the way, one RR map will display still display, won't flicker or anything when I short these two together down here. So this is hooked up. There's another jumper that's right here that when you have it in the other position, like so, if you can see that, it's actually in the programming position. And that I completed that step that allows it to program and say, yes, you are listening to hooked up to a Digitrax booster. So let's turn the power on. Well, power to the booster. I don't have track power on yet. So we still don't see anything here. Let's go ahead and turn the track power on and set that right side up. And we can see the top one here is directly from the booster. And then below we have a slightly different reading that's coming out of the DCC Specialties circuit breaker here. So now that's kind of what you'd expect. It should be just passing right through. It should work just fine. So the real thing is, what happens when your train runs through the turnout in the wrong direction? Well, we're going to simulate that. I'm going to hook up another little thing here. Let's see. Let's just hook that to that lead right there. It's easier than dropping a screwdriver across here. And we're going to just touch this. We're going to short this. And see what happened? No power here. This one stayed on. So that's exactly what we wanted to see. Okay. That is great news. That's what you want to see. Now, what I don't have, and you can't add, is an audible alarm. They have a little thing that you can solder on right here in this circle that will make a noise, a little buzz sound when you get a circuit. So, because usually you will have this like in a cabinet or something. And so you may want to not just be protected from the short, but you may want to know what's happening, because what you're not getting is you're not getting any audible sound from the Digitrax system. So let me just short that. We're going to short that right here. And if you heard that, did you hear that? Beep, 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 beep. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was a short. So that also, you notice, let's do that once more. We'll do it over on this output side. All power went off. So if that happened, what would happen on your layout is all the trains are stopped. All of your sounds would go off. And also, if you've got, we'll see later, if you've got like diesels or steam engines that have sound, they will do their startup sound all over. Oh, it's really not cool. Yep. Yep. So just like JP said, the alarm becomes a deterrent. Nobody wants to do that. We had a similar thing back in my work. We used to call it breaking the build. And I had a special thing. If you broke the build, so everybody's writing code and pushing up code to the central place where it all gets built. And the challenge was to not break the build. Well, if you did break the build, I actually had it hooked up so there was a red light or a green light outside of my office. And if the build was broken, the red light would go off and people would know. So we also had another thing, was the the gnome of shame. So if you had the garden gnome sitting on your desk, then you had broken the build most recently. But I digress. Of course, this is Rocky off the rails, so we have little sidetracks all the time. Okay, so this is great, but this only does one. You can order more of these things and have as many as you want for as many subdivisions or that you want to have on your layout, because this will protect you against just one section, but the other sections are you the gnome herder. Actually, we had even worse one. I had a ceramic one that would sit on your desk, and every month the person who'd broken the build the most times in the month would be awarded that. They had to sit on their desk for the whole next month. Hey, Hot Dog Andy Pilot, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. So, yeah, but it turns out when I went on vacation one time and came back, I discovered that they'd broken the gnome. I think somebody got pissed off about it and threw it to the floor. But anyways, okay, so that's what we got. We got that Digitrax DCC Specialties. One is hooked up. Let's turn the track power off. And we will make some modifications here. Let's take this our meter off. Let's disconnect these things. We are going to make a larger modification here to our setup. So what I want to do here is get ready for the other part of the demonstration here. Dwight Curley's in the house. Thanks for joining us. Gonna put some jumper wires here because I have another terminal block. And we're going to disconnect from here. Here. Okay, we're disconnected now. We're going to move this over slightly. Now, how was it that I did this? Ah, yes. So this part, these two pieces here go to the track. So when you saw, if people were here earlier, you saw two locomotives sitting on two different rails. Now those are both in the same district. I didn't separate those. I put this in the right end. These are just Wago connectors. Makes it convenient to just hook things up. Just slide those in there and clip that out. Okay, now that is connected to the track. And we're going to bring in our other piece here. But first, I'm going to pull it out of its breakout board and show. This is a PM42. And let me walk through what JP said here. He said, a note from experience. I tried the PSX next to areas to manage, but they didn't seem to get the little extra wiring runs from the booster. They are now next to the booster and run great. Great idea. So we should keep those in the wiring cabinet or wherever you have close to where you have your booster as kind of like the last step. that's great feedback on that. Yeah. So thank you, JP. Oh, so you're out in your train shed setting up. Cool, Andy. Closet branch. I don't know what it is. Okay. We will go over that. So this is the electronics of it. Looks kind of fancy. It's got 2 push buttons here. They're for programming. There's a jumper wire up here. None of this we know what it does. For Digitrax system, it has a connection here for the wire connector that looks kind of like 6-DIN phone wire that you plug in there. And we plug that back into our LocoNet. And so what is it? It's what they say, it's a cost-effective power management for 4 power sub-districts. Okay. What does that mean? It means that effectively, and I've seen some people talk about this elsewhere, effectively, you have 4 different power supplies. You could think of it that way, each individually protected. Yeah, and so each one of these, and here's the relays, which is this is the PM42 depends on these. Each one of these protects that section of track. At least that's the theory. Now I have another thing, which I probably showed in previous shows. This piece here. What's this? What's up with that? Well, PM42 ships with a little 44-pin connector that you solder all the wires to make the connections. Makes it a little bit messy. This breakout board here by, I think, Aculites.com. They make these things for the older board-based Digitrax equipment. So what happens is you just slide this into there. And I don't know why people decided that they need to actually also screw this down, because I'll tell you what, that's not coming out of there. Okay, so once that's there, there's some things that you can follow the instructions from that came with this breakout board. So what you have a breakout board because now everything is terminal screw based. There's no soldering. Where there's options, there are jumpers. And we'll go through some of those today. Here's the instructions. But it makes it pretty straightforward to wire this up, and you don't have to solder anything. So unlike on the other board here, where we had to solder a jumper in place, all these are these kind of small little jumper blocks. And I have these all set right now. They're not connected to anything. So, and that's per instructions. So you've got the board, the DCC LocoNet cable comes in here, and there's a second one for chaining this up. And you've got all the circuitry to support this. Yeah. Well, you're right. You're right, JP. They're hard to lose. They're easy to lose. But that's why I put them like I did here. It turns out the PM74 is an upgrade to this one. It doesn't have all this. We're not going to go through that because this is the one I got set up. I have this set up in kind of bare wire here. So Bear with me. Ha ha ha. There's another connection here that is going to a power supply, which I'll hook up. And then the other thing that you need to have is this green wire, which goes into the common ground back to your booster. So that goes into that thing there. So this is all on PM42. If we did all this, we would be looking at which pin to what and making sure that we had the other thing is that you aren't able to use easily large gauge wire when you're hooking up to those things. So I didn't bring in those connectors, but trust me, this is the right way to go. Okay, what are we going to do here? Well, let's see. Let's hook up the rail A and the rail B wire to the terminal block. It's up here off camera. I'm doing this. There's just not enough room all under the camera here. So, okay, got those. And I'm also going to chain this. I'm going to chain this over to the other terminal block so that the other circuit breaker continues to have power, because that's going to be our other district that will be under power. Then once we turn this on, and that's connected to the track power right now, even before I turn the PM74 on, I'm not going to hook up power to this yet, but what we are going to do is go back over to our camera setup. Switch, I have mislabeled. Oh, that's great. Okay, which one of these sits overhead? Okay. Yeah, just hold on one second. I gotta switch cameras here. Oh, look, I did that on the live one. All right. Yeah. So there we are. Rocky is looking at that. The trains are there. We've got power here, and we're going to turn the power on. And let's see. Very interesting. I don't have lights to the circuit breaker, so I did something wrong here. Let me see if I do have to have the PM74 hooked up or not. Very interesting. I've done something wrong here. This is the wonders of the live show. What do we do? What do we do here? All right. Oh, finally. There's a loose connection here. There we go. There we go. Okay. No problem. Wiring issue. We had that. And I don't know if you can hear it, but that SD40-2 is spinning up, and it's awfully loud in here. Okay. So we got power to the PM42. But let's turn off the track power momentarily. And that does cause the breakers, or the relays, they actually are little relays, to actually reset here. I'm kind of running out of space here. Let's see if I can get this all set up here. And I'm going to transition. Oh, great. I set this up wrong. All right. That's not going to work too well. All right. There we go. Let's go to this one with no text. Okay. And let me bounce back over to, we need a sound equipped Rocky too. Yep. Let's see. I'm going to disconnect to power from PM74 when I do this, because that has a separate wall wart power supply or 12 to 18 volt power supply, which is what I'm going to use my new power supply in the cabinet to do. Okay, so I've got this one hooked up to district 2. And this is getting out of hand here. So let me move this over. And I'm jumping. So these are the outputs. So each of the 4 outputs on the breakout board come off of the bottom of the breakout board right here. And I've got 4 of them. And the jumpers are set up, in theory, they're not set up at all. Why would you use the jumpers? Well, this PM74 can also do some auto reversing. Although to tell you the truth, probably because I never read the instructions correctly, as usual, that it never seemed to work out for me, either the PM74 or the PM42 as a auto reverser. So I use Digitrax AR1, which some people have had success using and others have not. It really depends on getting your track and all your wiring done correctly. All right, PM74 has got that really bright green LED going on. We're going to turn the track power back on. And because it's slightly annoying, I'm going to attempt to turn the sound off. And I don't know if I'll be successful. Let's see, I've got 1876 there. There we go. Sound is off, but lights are on, and now you can hear the GP30. Nice. All right. Yep, I'm living on the edge. Shorts could happen at any moment, including an open circuit. Okay. We got sound over there. We got District 1 here, District 2 here. Okay, so what's going to happen if we short District 1? All right. Did everybody see that? And they hear it? We got District 1 going off, and nothing else is affected. That's awesome. So that means that when somebody's playing around in their yard and short something out, and you hear it, you probably can't hear it over the sound of that power mover. Yeah, let's just throw some horn on there for cowbell. Oh, there we got the train cowbell going. Need more cowbell. All right, so we were successful. We protected our circuits. It's not affecting the other circuit breaker here. And we'll just short this one here on 2. 2 is also doing the same thing. And if I go over to the track, which is kind of off camera here, I shorted out the track. And this is where it gets wonky. The interaction between these two different products didn't quite work out the way that we wanted it to. So mixing these things together is not the best solution. I am going to turn the track power off because we don't need more power movers setting up. Okay, so that was a quick demo of what you can do with power management. And we would never have our wiring cabinet hooked up this way with all these open wires. But for a quick demo and under controlled, and only professionals should attempt this. Although I don't think I'm a professional. As you can see, it was one unexpected thing that happened here was that I didn't expect that when we shorted the track on this circuit breaker, that it actually ended up, and I held that short longer than I wanted it to. It actually shorted back to the command station. So that's something interesting. Yeah, and JP is right. It's the PSX is faster being solid state. It is solid state, but then the PM42. Oh yeah, you're right. I got it reversed. PSX is solid state. It's faster. PM42. At least the PM42 is not solid state. I do believe, and I can actually, I think, pop this open without breaking it. Yes. This is what the PM74 looks like, and it's still got all those circuit breakers. Although I think it's faster. I think it's different because you see these detectors here. I think it's like maybe a Hall effect. I mean, not a Hall effect. That's magnetic. Those are. Oh, I'm not going to put this back on when we're on camera. Let's see. Yeah, I can. Yeah, we won't. So this is what the under the hood. That's what the PM74 looks like. It's a redesigned board. It probably takes up about the same amount of space, but it uses Digitrax standard hoods. And I'm going to have to work on making sure that I get that back in place properly. But yeah, so all these are going to be pretty much the same. Yeah, so that might actually be occupancy sensing versus short protection, those coils. So I do recall on other devices that, yeah, you are, excuse me, you are, you've got multiple capabilities in the PM74. Let's see, there's a bigger thing. Yep. Each district has occupancy and transponding detection capability. So similar to like an SE8 or their larger one, or not the SE8, the BD, the block detection circuitry. Okay, so we went through what this is, why would we have this, and Dats was like, "How do you know all this? My brain is experiencing a short circuit right now." Yeah, well, this is I'm an engineer by trade, so I don't mind dabbling in this, and a lot of it is just going through and being familiar and reading the instructions um, as thoroughly as possible, and then also applying this to several other people online who actually utilize these things as well. Um, but yeah, you learn by doing, Closet Branch, and some people's brains are wired to handle this kind of stuff, and other people are just like, yeah, I'll stay doing my own thing, scenery, running trains, or collecting, or what have you. So yeah, it's not for everybody, and I know my mom has probably already turned the stream off, thinking I don't know what the heck my son is talking about. So, anyways, in fact, some other viewers probably already haven't made it 47 minutes into the show or 44 into the talking, and like, geez, this is just crazy, crazy. So that's what I got for power management. We didn't go into a lot of the other features that are here. So let me this is the older instruction manual here. It says, let's see, cost-effective power management for 4 power sub-districts, short circuit management or auto reversing for each sub-district, and short circuit management increases layout reliability. Now, I do know that to attempt to avoid the situation where we just set up, right? I put a short on the track over to this side, and we put a short over to the track, and it was coming through the PSX here, and it protected it temporarily, but then when it was doing it, so what a circuit breaker does is it stops the short temporarily, but then it will also it has to do like a loop. And if you had like an old Lionel um, transformer for your trains, it had the same thing in there, but I think it was they had a little relay in there that when there was a short circuit, I think it was electromechanical, it would actually cause the relay to open and then close. So it would do this tick, 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 kind of like your blinkers on your car. But in between that, when it was not there, you would temporarily get power, and then it detected the short, and then it would open again. So what it means is you weren't going to constantly apply power, but unlike, say, in your home near your kitchen sink, you've got that circuit protection, and you can push that little test button on there and it'll pop. Or like I had with my Christmas lights this year, I had a short that was inside of what I thought was a water protected join, a water protected case to join the two connections together. The problem was there was something in there that shorted, and it burned the plugs, and it popped all the outside It didn't pop the main box circuit breaker. It popped the what do you call it? The it's there to make sure that people don't electrocute themselves when they're close to water. So you have these in your bathrooms. JP will tell me what it is in a second. Okay. Pete Motley says, come over when time comes to help wire the layout. You're a genius. Well, I'm not a genius, but I play one on TV. No, just kidding. I'm not a genius at all. I just have experience doing this. I won't have experience doing this unless I failed doing it. Yeah, Dan wins the cookie. GFCI, that's right. GFCIs are also similar to this. And it's like a fast acting fault interrupt. So it basically says, hey, if I get a short, I'm gonna turn off really fast. Now you say, okay, but about my breakers in my main panel box, well, they do that too. Well, they do that, but in the meantime, they would say they would allow a lot more current to pass through your body before they tripped. And that's what electrocuting you is. Yes, thanks, Dan. Ground fault circuit interrupter. So what's that do? Basically says, hey, if I get a short to ground, so from one of the things to the ground circuit, I will interrupt that as quickly as possible. So you get that. You get that when you've got a water source that's come in contact with electricity, or just a short in general. Okay, Closet. Pete and Dats are going to nominate me for genius. I think there's a lot smarter people out there. But there's always somebody. This is the thing I learned. There's always somebody smarter than you. Unlike in high school, or at least I thought, well, there's nobody better than me in programming. I'm the best there is. Then you go out into the bigger world. Okay. Are we making blue smoke today? That was the goal, was to not make any blue smoke. We have successfully made it through the show without making blue smoke. Now, I have to say that why am I talking about this now was because I did make blue smoke. So if you recall in past shows, I was talking about power supplies. I had a bad short in my wiring cabinet because what I believe I tracked this down to, I had a step up transformer that went bad. It was shorting 12-volt power supplies together. So have I melted my rolling stock? No, not on the layout, not yet. Someday, I'm assuming I will. But I'll tell you what, I'll tell you a story. So way back in the late 70s, early 80s, every time that we had the county fair go on, the local model railroad club that my dad was a member of, the kids got an opportunity to fill in for people running trains. And my dad's good friend, Don Bigley, who I think he and my dad are both watching the show from up in the sky now. Don Bigley had these lovely HO scale. I think they were PA. They were either PAs or they were E units, but they were lovely. There was no sound. This was in the 80s. but they were nice units. I actually, unknown to me, had them cross a block, and the 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 front unit was powered. The back unit just had, I think, lighting, and it wasn't moving. And so I cranked up the rheostat, right? The cranked up to higher power to get it to move. And guess what? The B unit had power. It was unpowered dummy, but it had pickups and lights. And I melted the wires for the lighting. The case melted. Yeah, that's not something cool, especially to your dad's friend. But I didn't get into too much trouble for that. But the other thing I've done recently was decoders. So decoders can also suffer from short circuits inside of the case. And I was putting in a decoder into. I was trying to get this decoder set up, and it was a not made for. It was not a DCC ready one, So you had to do all the wiring inside. It's not a snap-in one. And somehow I got a wire crossed, and so there was a short. And when I went to go back and test it, I wasn't being careful enough to actually make sure. I put the case back on, the shell back on, hooked it up to power, and one of the wires was grounded, and it left it baked a hole through the shell. So much for that Burlington Northern shell. But to this point, to this date, other than a couple of, in fact, it's been a while, but my Broadway Limited decoders tended to be more susceptible to this. I had at least two of them that just stopped working. It might have been because of bad track wiring. So let me go and switch over views to the main camera view, and then go back over to comments, and let's see what JP says. The Fremont group I once was with had a district out of phase. The wires were A and B backwards. Loco stopped on the gap. Ooh, and there was no auto reverser. While troubleshooting, melted a new sound-equipped Kato Unitrack logo. Yells. Yep. I'm not sure it's called weathering. I think what it's called is this is now a new model for you to put into your locomotive repair facility. Or maybe you can melt it further and cut it up and make it into something to simulate what happened after a derailment. But yeah, so that's all I have today. We didn't get into the PM74, and it's different. It's largely the same. It's largely the same, except PM42 does not have occupancy detection capability and transponding. So transponding is a way of detecting specific decoders, I believe, on specific sections of your layout. If you've got, say, like a JMRI computer system hooked up, you could display specific locations of specific equipment on your layout. Or at least tell, hey, there's something, you're telling us something beyond just simple occupancy detection. Yeah, so the PM74 has got a number of improvements. One is there's no more soldering, and these terminals, you don't want to do this too many times. I'll show you after I get this done. But these small little 4-pin These things pop off. There's 4 of these, so there's 16 wires. And then they slide back down. So each one of those will pop off. And I think, well, I won't think. You've got one for each power district. And then the center one is the input. And you can use 12 gauge. I believe you can use 12 gauge wire on it. Here, let's do a demonstration. The question, though, would be whether or not you can use solid 12 gauge wire or stranded, like I've got AWG 12. So let's try that. I've had this hooked up before. This was on the layout, but I had it hooked up badly. What were you saying before, JP? Yes, slides right in. That's AWG 12, ties down, and there you have it. You can put 12 gauge wire in there just fine. Or you can put in, like I like to do, is you put those ferrules on the end of the wires. So I disconnect the track here, and I can show you the wire. I think I've showed you these before, but you can put those things in there. Now, what you can't do, you can't put the 12 gauge ferrules on top of the AWD 12 and then put them into most of these screw connectors. It just makes it too big. So you're better off with 12 gauge wire, just using like 1/8 of an inch. This is more than that. There. That's more like 1/4 of an inch. Actually, even more. You're better off snipping off about 1/8 of an inch or so. And then, yeah, thanks for reminding me, Andy. Well, this hasn't been, this is not one of the more popular subjects, is wiring. But I think it's important to go through these things. And how do I figure out the topics for these shows? Well, I kind of just wandered through my journey on my layout. And so instead of actually giving you layout updates, what I'm giving you is things that have happened to me in the past week or two. And so that's how I'm getting to these things. But thanks, Andy, for reminding me. Hey, everybody, if you're still here, please like and subscribe to this show and all my shows. After I conclude this, I'll go back eventually and I'll get the cards that'll pop up here and here and here and here, so you can find other content. And to everybody who's watching now or watching in the future, thanks for watching and making it through another episode of Rocky Off the Rails. And we will be back next week, if not sooner. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Dwight. You guys that are watching live most likely are, but there will be other people that may come across the show, and if they want to see more of the same stuff. Oh, and today we have the special guest. Let's not leave him out. Behind my shoulder, oh, that way, is the big bear. Yeah. There was a story, if you watch the beginning of the stream, you know that he was kicked out of his bedroom because we have a guest. So that's all I got for today. Thanks everybody for watching. and making it through to this far and taking an hour out of your busy life and schedules to watch me fumble my way through explaining more less known topics, or at least for some of us. Um, and then we'll have another show next week. And it's going to be layout photos first. And then after the photos will be the live stream. So thanks everybody for watching. I'm going to wrap this up and say, what? I'll be back. Okay. Thanks everybody.